Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you with us. For all those returning listeners, I just want to say thank you. Because of you and our amazing guests, we are now in the top 10 fastest growing podcasts out there. That's quite an accomplishment by you because one, you listening in, and two, there are over 1 million podcasters in the world today. So thank you. If you're brand new, join us. Don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and you previous listeners, subscribe too. We'd like to have you in the conversation. Please give us your comments. We love to create a conversation as we go. All right, before we get started here today, we got another great story. You know, my philosophy is too many interests for just one lifetime, and there's always a story around the corner. But today we got to do the house cleaning stuff like normal. Don't forget to subscribe. If you don't like the podcast platform you're on, we're on 23 of them, so you can find us everywhere. We're on every social media, Rex Andrews Show. And then, of course, one of the best things to do is go to the website, rexandrewsshow.com. You can actually listen to the podcast there, or you can also take a look at all the guests that we have. We have a big lineup coming constantly. And then you can check out ones that you may not have learned about or missed. Their bios, links to their businesses, and what have you are there. Okay, I'm excited for this one today. It's been a cold, snowy weekend here in Colorado, and we're recording this on the 15th of March. And we had around 2 to 3 feet of snow, depending on where you were, and nice sized drifts. So I need a break. I've been shoveling snow for the last 36 hours. So today's guest, what's exciting about her, she's a wife, a mother, a CEO, kind of a serial entrepreneur, but mostly she's kind of, well, I would call a money geek. Now, money geek is a nice term because I'm a computer geek. So welcome to the show, Angela Anderson. And Angela, how are you today?
Hi, Rex. I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I'm tired, but I'm sitting down, so that's a good thing. And I'm excited to talk to you today, learn more about what you got cooking. Now, if people want to follow along, because a lot of our listeners are doing 2 things at one time, what's a website where people can find you or your social media so that way when we start to get into some of that stuff, they can follow along?
Yes. So go to angelaanderson.life. Make sure it's .life because angelaanderson.com is a painter and I cannot draw a stick figure to save my life. So go to angelaanderson.life. I am also on Facebook. You can find me at Angela Anderson 1008. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And you'll know it's me because you'll see money and financial counseling and all those kinds of things written all over my social.
All right. Thank you. So if you're listening along, guys, there's the spaces you can find her. Okay. So on the show, we always like to get the backstory. I guess that's the phrase everybody uses today. We want to understand the story about you, Angela. I am a consumer of biographies and always have been since I was a kid. I just love to understand people's stories. And, you know, most people don't understand there's huge stories behind what we think are overnight successes. So most of them aren't always, or those overnight successes are accumulation of other stops along the way. So for our audience and listeners and those that are brand new, what I'd like to have you do, Angela, is take us back in time. So where did you grow up? How many siblings did you have? What was your family like? What did your parents do for a living? You know, all of those kinds of things. Take us through a little bit of your childhood and education and those things. And then we'll start talking about the other stuff. So take it away.
So one of my earliest memories, Rex, was being in the ocean with my mother. And she was singing to me. And that was because I was born in Miami.
Okay.
And I didn't stay there for very long. And the reason why was because my father worked for the US government and we traveled around and were stationed in different places every 2, 3, 4 years.
Okay.
And a big part of my childhood was actually growing up overseas in Thailand. And it was a wonderful childhood. I really had no idea what was going on in terms of my father's work. But when you work for the US government, you can be put in some pretty interesting predicaments, shall we say.
Right.
But as a child, I was always kept really safe. And my mother was she was a stay-at-home mom, and she always worked part-time, and my parents tried to be as involved as possible and give my sister and I have an older sister who's only 15 months older than I am.
Okay.
Just a normal childhood. Now, because I grew up in Asia, I didn't eat mac and cheese like a
Okay.
lot of American kids. I ate sticky rice and Thai food and exotic Thai fruits. And so whenever I have nostalgia, I want to go find a Chinese market or someplace where I can get some of my Thai fruits. But I live here in Colorado and I can hardly find it. And if I
Yeah.
do, I spend $5 on like something that is really only 2 bites. So, but
Yeah.
that's really how it all began.
Okay. So we here in Colorado, I'm not going to speak for every part of the United States, even though I've been to almost all of them. We're not that good on sticky rice here. That's for sure. So, okay. So in Thailand, um, you were probably mostly around American installations and stuff. Did you go to schools with other kids who spoke English, or were there language barriers? Tell us a little bit about that.
So my preschool was actually a Japanese preschool, and I don't remember whether we spoke English or Japanese or Thai. But I do know that I have a propensity actually to learn languages, and I can pronounce things in other languages without knowing the language very well.
Okay.
And I really think it's because I spent so much time, the other schools that I went to, they were English speaking schools, but children were from all over the world.
Okay.
So like my graduating class out of the International School of Bangkok, Thailand from high school, we had over 50 nationalities graduate. And so there was a lot of language going on and a lot of different culture that was just normal to me, everyday living. Um, yeah, the instruction was in English, but the culture and the underlying messages that were going back and forth was very diverse and very, now that I think about it, incredibly rich experience for me.
Yeah, I have some friends of the family who their kids grew up in international, similar type situations, international schools, and they come out so well rounded just because of all the different cultures, all the different languages, belief systems, races. It really, in my opinion, prepares people for a well rounded life. I think that's a neat experience a lot of people have.
It
Okay.
was wonderful. And, I think about what's happened in our country with COVID and the rioting and how we look at gender and race. And I just, if it, I just don't remember looking at the Asian race or the Black race or the white race in different ways. And my parents didn't teach me that. It was just so different. And so I come from an experience where I recognize when I see someone, yes, they're Asian, or yes, they're African American, or, you know, but I I never knew, like when I came to college in the United States and people would make Jewish jokes, I was appalled. I was like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. And
Right.
and they'd be like, yeah, well, that's a Jewish blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't get what you're saying. What does this have anything to do with anything?
Right.
Because I didn't grow up that way.
No, I understand. I understand 100%. My father was in law enforcement. We were completely colorblind. I mean, that was like if you were of a different race, it was like you had a different color shirt. It didn't matter to us, and that's what it is. So I think it's unfortunate where things are right now. I think a lot of it is being drummed up. I'm not sure I understand all that, but it's a crazy world. But I know that your experience is probably similar to mine. I mean, that just didn't matter to me. It just didn't.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it wasn't made to matter, and it's been a wonderful gift because now of all the different people that I have in my life that I get to be blessed by.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, so you graduated high school there in Bangkok. Then what was the next step?
Then the next step is I came back to the United States, and the easiest thing to do was to go to university here in Colorado, where my mother, where the majority of our family is, and I had to buy socks and a winter coat and like figure this whole thing out because I'd lived in a tropical place and never dealt with a real harsh winter ever. And it was back in the day, what, 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, where we had pretty harsh winters. And so I went to college, got a degree, lived in a small town, had massive culture shock. But at the end of the day, I'm still American, so it's not like I don't know how to manage myself here in the US. But yeah, I got a degree, and in between, in the summertime, I needed to get out of the small town I was going to college in, so I would travel, and I traveled and did different volunteer work in Mexico. I went to Spain and studied, and so I really dove into learning the Spanish language and traveling internationally and just getting out and about.
Nice. So did you go to school here in Colorado then, college?
I did. I went to Adams State University in
Oh,
Alamogordo, Colorado.
Adams State is one cold spot.
Oh, it's cold. Next
Cold,
to
cold.
Gunnison, it is cold.
Yeah, right up there. I had some friends. I played football up at UNC in Greeley, but they came here from Hawaii and Tonga. And then when they got here, the only other shoes that they had ever purchased were cleats.
Yep.
So, they were football players. So they wore flip-flops all the time until a couple days. And then they were calling their parents looking for, hey, I need a little more in my budget this month because I've got to go buy shoes. And those guys, they wore shorts year round. It was hilarious. They were a great guy. I think that's where I picked up that habit. So that's fantastic. Yeah. So Adams State, that is a remote, a small town. You can probably drive, for those who have not been to Adams State, you could probably drive the entire main street in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's about it. So fantastic. Okay. So you get out of school and you did some traveling around. What was the next step that you did there? What was the next big milestone?
Well, I worked for about a year because during that year I was in the process of applying to be a Peace Corps volunteer.
Okay.
And I never really even set my sights on getting in. I just set my sights on doing the next step because the application process is really extensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it through. And I remember getting the invitation to join, and I did, and I got on a plane, and I was a Peace Corps volunteer for 2.5 years in Paraguay in South America.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where all in Paraguay did you go?
So we did our training just outside of Asuncion, which is the capital. So when you're a Peace Corps volunteer, you have to go through 3 months of training before you're officially sworn in. And some people don't even make that. They have statistics on how many people dropped. So we watched some people drop, and I made it through. And then I was assigned to a really remote village up in the north corner, kind of almost by Brazil.
Okay.
And I thought that I was going to get to speak Spanish, but no. They sent me to a village where I then had to learn Guarani, which is the second official language of Paraguay. It's actually the only country in the world that has two official languages, Spanish and Guarani. And they said, no, your Spanish is good enough. We're going to send you up there. So I did all my language school and learned Guarani. And I was a rural health specialist, which meant that I worked with the schools and the teachers in the community to improve their health practices, brush their teeth, wash their hands, have cleaner living conditions, and stop cooking with fire in the middle of the ground in their huts, and build brick ovens and things like that. So, and I did a lot of laying around in my hammock and dealing with the heat and hand washing my clothes and a lot of the other things that you do when you're living that way without any running water or electricity in a place.
It's after in college, I got to do some of that, and it's different when you go to developing countries and you're living without the conveniences, and you really realize how spoiled we are here even today compared to a lot of places. Okay.
And you realize how little that stuff even means
Doesn't
after
matter.
a while, once you get used to living that way and life
right.
slowing down. Yeah.
There's a lot of days I wish I wasn't hyper connected to a cell phone, that's for sure. So
Yes.
So after the Peace Corps, you come home. Did you come back to Colorado then?
I did. I came back to Colorado, and while I was in the Peace Corps, I met a gentleman who was part of a spiritual group, and he taught me a lot about yoga and really encouraged me to start a yoga practice. And I came back to Colorado, and I was working a nonprofit job in Alamosa, and I started going to a yoga class, and I learned about this teacher that does a real pure form of Ashtanga yoga. And I decided I wanted to take her class. And it was all the way up in this little town called Crestone in
Oh,
Colorado.
yep.
And I started taking her class. And one thing led to another. And I met my husband in her class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a place. Because Crestone is not a very big place.
It's teeny.
It's
It's
teeny.
teeny.
Yeah.
Even teenier than Alamosa. And I happened to meet the love of my life in that class, and we quit our jobs and went to India and did more yoga and traveled around, went to Thailand, uh, went to the beach and bummed around. Then we went to South America and bummed around for a little bit there, and then decided to start having a family. So we came back to Crestone and started a family and lived there and lived real close to the land for about 15 years.
Wow. Wow. What a journey. So, how many years were you playing Vagabond on the road where you were just traveling?
Oh, with him, I probably about 2.5 years is, and then, well, the families came pretty quickly. So it
Sure.
was, once we were in that mode, it was boom. Never had any issue getting pregnant and moving on with family life.
All right.
Yeah.
So, was there a point in your 2.5 year journey with your husband there that you just looked at each other, and was there some sort of pivotal moment, or was it just kind of tired of this, or what happened that made you decide let's go home?
Well, I did get pregnant when we were in Santiago, Chile,
Okay.
and it we had planned to stay in South America for longer and kick around and see what happens, but that primal thing kicks in where no, I want my home, I want clean air. Unfortunately, Santiago is an amazing city, but it's very contaminated.
Yes.
It was hard for me to breathe, and it was just really clear that no, I don't want to have a baby overseas. I want to be in my house and have a midwife and do it my way and smell my clean air out of Colorado. And so we said, okay, that's what we're going to do.
Fantastic. All right. So you come home and you start building your family, and they come quickly for you. Were you working at all, or was it your husband, or what was your income sources look like at that point in time?
My husband and I always had really good habits. We came into the marriage without any debt, none. We owned our cars, we owned our degrees, and we always had a certain set point where of money that was in the bank.
Yeah.
So that was, we were ignorant. I don't remember having that conversation because it's an important conversation to have when you're going to combine forces with someone and live your life. But we both lucked out with each other. And so I was a stay-at-home mom, and he had a solar business.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was called Agua Solar, helping you get into hot water.
Oh,
Is
okay.
was it what we did, and I managed the books for it, and realized that he needed to do a few things so we could have better profit margins. But I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, so I would set up at the local weekend farmers market, and I made baked goods and things like that to add to the family. And then once the boys they were a little bit older and I could leave them for a few hours, I started a bookkeeping business
Oh,
and had
nice.
about half a dozen clients that I would go and do their books for every few hours a week. And then I'd work at nights when they went to bed.
Now you say boys. How many kids do you have today?
2 boys.
Two boys. Okay, fantastic. I've got two too, but I have this other side of the equation called three daughters. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, so this kind of gets us on this path. I mean, you've done a great job of pivoting, and I think that's one of the biggest attributes that people who have success, they aren't people who just stay on one course. They pivot a lot. So it sounds like you kind of pivoted through some things. What was your degree in?
My degree was in international business, and then I
Okay,
had a minor in Spanish, and it was simply for my love of the language,
sure. Okay,
the travel.
but international business to the Peace Corps, that's a different hop.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I just needed to get out of Dodge and really switch my head around. And I've always had a heart for service and living overseas. And I can cope with living in Thailand. Okay, I was a privileged American girl, but when I'd walk the streets, there was beggars and
Yeah.
all kinds of that going on. So I I have a sense of service inside of me.
Okay. So you've actually started another company. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was a bookkeeper, and it was something that was always normal and natural for me to do. And I went through my bookkeeping journey, and I had all kinds of different clients that I learned things from. Had a bout as a health and fitness professional and was teaching classes and doing things in that realm. But what I really noticed at the end of the day was I had a knowledge of money that people always came and asked for my help with,
Mm-hmm.
a knowledge and a knack, as well as a way to help people manage their emotions and deal with that whole part about money. And so I realized it was, but didn't happen until I was about 40 years old. So I'm about 5 years into the journey because I didn't feel quite mature enough
Sure.
to really embrace all the different aspects of and the challenges that people have with money. And finally, I decided that I needed to really come out and use my experience with the tactical part of money as well as the emotional side of money and help people win with money and achieve financial peace and plenty. And so that's why it was really more of a calling, and also knowing that, okay, you're old enough, you're experienced enough, you can handle this, that I finally stepped up to the plate and said, okay, I am going to build a business and around helping entrepreneurs win with money and create financial peace and plenty in their lives.
Fantastic. So I've talked to a lot of people, money issues and those types of things. Sometimes people have a peculiar, I can talk today, relationship with money. Do you see that in the people that you work with?
Every single one of them.
Okay. What do you think? What are some of the most common, and then what are some that can be possibly troublesome?
It seems to me, Rex, that it doesn't matter how much you make, that inside of us, we all have a fear that we're not going to have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked with entrepreneurs making multiple six figures that are scared that their money's going to run out, or that the tide is going to change and they're not going to be able to bring in as much business as they did the year before. And I've worked with people that literally on paper don't have enough. So they have the proof there in front of them that money is, hard to come by. So I would say that's common no matter who you are, where you come from, is there's this fear that we have inside of us that it's going to run out, we're not going to have enough, so on and so forth. And then there are other very specific issues, and that is about our own money stories and how we were raised, how we watched our parents, things that happened to us that can be very specific with how we do money now, as well as things that happen to us as adults, like a
Mm-hmm.
bankruptcy, a divorce, um, massive student loan debt, getting burned by a business partner. Things happen as we're adults
Sure.
that then tend to traumatize us with money.
How about, I look at my five kids and they all have their own personalities and relationships with money. I have one that if you were to give that, I'm going to be careful because they listen. I have one that if you give them a nickel, then it's gone. And I have another that if you give them a nickel, it'll be here in 10 years. And I have uh, various relationships. And I have one that if she had $4 left in her checking account today, it wouldn't be a big deal. So it's just all over the map. So do you see patterns on how people um, deal with their relationships with money?
Absolutely. It's honestly, Rex, rare that I see somebody take that nickel and turn it into $50.
Right.
That is what we all want to know how to do. That 90% of us were not taught how to do that unless
Sure.
your parents were entrepreneurs and successful and taught that to you. So yeah, I mean, I was the one, and I'm still the one that loves to turn around and spend the money as soon as I get it. And my
Okay.
sister was the one that kept it.
Okay.
And mm, whether that's detrimental to you or not, at the end of the day, we need to have that honest conversation with ourselves and ask ourselves, am I happy?
Right.
Am I happy with where I'm going? Do I
Mhm.
feel safe? I think a lot of it is rooted in safety
Okay.
and the feelings that you want to have. And is what I'm doing actually what I'm doing? How I'm spending my money match the feelings that I want to have and where I'm headed in my life. And that's where I find the disconnect is we all want to feel safe, yet why does the person who gets the $5 figure out a way to get rid of it as fast as possible?
Well, I also know that money is a huge dynamic in any relationship and families. And if people aren't on the same page, that can be a real big struggle or challenge. Um, I wouldn't know anything about that. Just kidding. Um, no, it becomes a real issue. And I'm sure you see a lot of situations where you're you're there to help people from a financial perspective and money, but it's almost like become quasi therapist, right?
Yes. Yes. Which is why one of my bookkeeping clients, he was the originator of a personal development company.
Hmm.
And I learned the method. I attended all the workshops and learned how he really helps people change, or the method that he developed to help people change. And I incorporate that in the work that I do with my clients, because if they can't change, even if they want to, then it's going to be difficult for them to go anywhere.
So with your courses, and I know you've got a lot of stuff coming online here shortly, you've got quite a bit of things. What process do you take people through to help them learn some of the things you've already learned? What do you
Yes.
teach?
So as a business owner, what I've done is I've developed 10 steps to financial
Okay.
peace and plenty. And those steps have to do with how to keep your money. They're like divided in 3 parts: how to keep your money, how to grow your money, and how to protect your money.
Okay.
Okay. So keeping your money has to do with managing it well, right? It has to do with understanding how to expense things out as a business owner, how to work with a CPA, bookkeeper, professionals, as well as understanding your own personal tendencies. Are you a spender like I am and always want to spend? It's like I have to put a muzzle on myself, figuratively speaking, and be like, no, this is how you prioritize your spending, Angela, so that you can spend and you can also keep it.
Hmm.
So there's that portion. The wealth growth is really about uh, investing in your retirement, right? Being able to grow money if you want to send your children to school, being able to take your money, take that $5 and turn it into 50.
Sure.
And what are the avenues that you use to do it? And then the wealth protection, and this is probably one of the most overlooked sections, especially with entrepreneurs, it is, do you have the right insurances? Are you protecting your business? Is your business entity created properly? Do you have that separation from your personal stuff to what your business owns? And all of that, Rex, is we weave all of that strategy and all that information and literacy and empowerment with who you really are at the core, who you really want to be. How do you really need to change? What's the path of least resistance? Because I don't want this to be a drag for anybody. Because
Right.
anybody can go onto Google and be like, how do I balance my bank account? Or whatever the question is. But it's who you are at the core that is really going to make that information work for you or not. And that is what we really need to deal with.
So is a lot of what you're dealing with, is it change management? Is it behavioral change?
Yes, and most of the time, by the time someone comes to me, they know they're ready to change. It's just that we need to do just a few pivots and a few little tweaks that are actually very deep and profound so that they can get put on the right path.
Okay.
And at the same time understand that There's a lot of people, a lot of business owners that feel dumb asking certain financial questions. And they say things like, I know I should know this, but I have this old 401k sitting around. What do I do? Well, when we work with your self-esteem, right, and your ability to create the time that you need for your business and prioritize your wants and your needs, then asking a question like, what do I do with my old 401k? You don't feel dumb anymore.
Right.
You feel empowered. You feel like you're a sponge, like you're ready for that information. And then when we go through, okay, these are the three options you have for that, it's easy for you to pick the one that you're most aligned with and just go do it.
Okay. So I have a question for you. You like to work, or your focus is working on entrepreneurs that have some resources and now want to figure out how to really make more money with that. Is there a pivot point in their lives that triggers them to come see you?
Absolutely. It's that time where you're finally earning money in your income and you are able to have those conversations with yourself and say, wow, I brought all this income in. Now what do I do? How do I keep it? How do I grow it? How do I do it so that I don't feel like I'm a deer in the headlights trying to talk to a CPA or an advisor or a planner? Like there's something here that I need to be tapped into, but I don't know what it is. And
Okay.
so what I do is help you not collect a junk drawer full of advice that you picked off Google or Facebook groups or wherever it
Sure.
is, and help you make sense of all of it so that you can have a very clear path and not get distracted with it. And also stay legal, stay protected, be doing the right things for you and taking care of yourself now and also the future you and your family.
Now, is there a particular type of business that you work with that sort of pops up as a trend, or is it all across the board?
So the trends are service-based businesses and
Okay.
small. You have maybe it's just you or you have a couple of people. You don't have a huge team. Service-based businesses, coaches, consultants. I've worked with copywriters, book publishers, business coaches, marketing coaches, real estate agents. I've even worked with other professionals in the financial field that need that extra set of eyes, right? And that outside look into what they're doing. So I've worked with attorneys and other financial professionals as well.
Okay. So when someone starts to work with you, what does that look like? Time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So generally you come in and we work together for 2 months.
Okay.
And we take your top priorities and get everything straight. And it's the reason why I say this is because everyone's financial situation is very unique and
Sure.
different. And so you have access to a library, a curated library of resources of all of the steps, the 10 steps of financial peace and plenty that you can plug yourself into. And you have access to that for the lifetime of the program, as well as all the updates, because you and I both know that things change, like in insurance here in the
Yep.
US or however we're doing things. But our 2-month time frame together is private sessions where we prioritize exactly what you need. So for example, you could be living overseas and not know that there is you can get a tax credit for being an American living out of the country but working. And so if you come in and your biggest question is, I have a massive tax bill, Angela, what am I going to do? Then I help you work with your CPA so that you make sure that you check all the boxes and get that thing as low as possible.
Okay.
There's other clients that are reeling from a bankruptcy. They may be earning a lot of money now, but they're still 3 years into a 5-year bankruptcy. And so there's things that we need to do to prioritize so that they know that they're on the road to financial peace and plenty for them.
Okay. Now, are you publishing a lot of this information with your financial piece and financing, or is it just with your courses today? Are you planning a book, or I know you've got some classes coming up, right?
Yeah. So as of now, if you want to follow me on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
or LinkedIn or go to my website and opt into the daily millionaire money messages.
Mm-hmm.
I publish a ton of valuable content. For example, there's a 2-part series on exactly how to send your kids to college without draining your bank account and sacrificing your retirement. And I go into detail on how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I have. And then when the course comes out, the Financial Peace and Plenty course, it'll be a self-study, step-by-step, do it at your own pace. And then you can access all of that content, those full 10 steps to financial peace and plenty. The difference is that in the course is then I'll have links, even more resources on how you can get this stuff done. This is where you go here. This is where you go to do that. This is the calculator for that. This is the checklist for that, so on and so forth. So it's just even more detailed and even more support.
Okay. So looking back at the time you've been doing this, what do you think's the most interesting thing you've learned, you yourself?
That no family or individual or business's finances are the same, but what we want is the same.
Okay. I would agree with
It's,
that.
and it's like we all want to be relaxed. We all want to have enough. We want to be generous. We want to just honestly not even have to think about it very much.
Right. Right. So when people come to you, are they expecting these miracles, or what do you think their expectations are when they walk in the door? Just so our listeners would know.
Yeah. You know, they're not, but they all do experience their own miracle in a way,
Okay.
because when you work one-on-one with somebody who really, like, I don't sell products, I don't take investment money, I don't sell
Sure.
insurance,
Right.
who really just is willing to say, ask the hard questions and comb through everything with you, then it's really profound. For example, I was working with a client and we were going through her cash flow management, cash flow planning, and her mortgage was huge, Rex. And I was just like, what's going on here? And it just opened up the whole can of worms about what a burden the house was. And she had never considered getting out from underneath it. And I said, look, you you hired me and I'm going to ask you the hard question.
Right.
What would it be like? Do you believe that something amazing and beautiful and comfortable and safe is available to you without having this massive burden? And she was just like, no, but I'm willing to. Rex, she decided to put that house for sale. She sold it on the first day for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars above asking price. She's just happy as a clam now.
Yeah, I bet. That's sometimes it takes somebody else to poke you in the nose or poke you in the mouth. I love the quote from Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So, you know, sometimes we just need someone else to punch us in the mouth. And sometimes that can't be a family member. It can't be a spouse. It can't be someone, a peer, that you work with. Sometimes you just need that objective person to, punch you in the mouth.
Yeah. And I wasn't planning on, I don't plan to tell my clients to uproot their lives,
Right.
but they pay me to hold a level of integrity,
Right.
of help them create financial peace and plenty. And so it would not be service to them if I didn't bring it up. And then we work through the emotions about what it actually means to make those changes. And she did it, and I'm just so happy for her because she's just so much more relaxed and less burdened and
Okay.
richer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. We put so much value in things, and that's not a great strategy in so many cases. So, what's the passion that gets you out of bed every day?
My own family,
Okay.
raising my kids, working with my husband. It's been challenging these past few years. My boys are teenagers. They're changing. They're needing things. My husband has had a change in career as well. We actually left Crestone. We're now in another small town about an hour up the road. So we've had a lot of life changes, and I am on my journey to financial peace and plenty as well. I'm creating it.
Mhm.
I'm making the mistakes. I mean, I got a letter from the IRS last year about a mistake that I made, and so I'm still. That's what gets me up out of bed is still learning and making my own mistakes and figuring things out and being aligned with what is really important and trying to make the decisions based on that and support my clients to do the same.
Okay. We all make changes in life and we pivot a lot. Is this something you expect to do for a while yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I do expect to do it for a while. I feel like I have for a long time because even before I said, hey, everyone, this is what I'm doing, a lot of people always came to me for help with their finances, and I'd help figure it out or help them write letters to the IRS. And I was always doing it. It's been years that I've done it. But and I do think, like I said, I mean, I'm a student of my own work. And so financial peace and plenty is something that we're constantly revisiting in the different years of our lives.
Sure.
So, yeah, I can see myself always helping people with this. Because, man, when you can sleep at night and you know that certain things are taken care of, and then you can let go.
Yeah, you can really start to live.
Hmm.
Again, what was the website just so people can find it?
AngelaAnderson.life.
Life. Gotta get the .life in there, folks. Don't forget that. So let's just have the what I call the $64 million question. It used to be 64,000, but 64,000 is not that relevant anymore. I mean, I think we probably have to go to billions here pretty soon. So we all have this thing in life we call a bucket list, and those things that we want to do. Okay, but in the universe, there's an opposite of everything. So there's a different kind of list out there that's not the bucket list. It rhymes with bucket, starts with an F. So, but I'm not saying that. What might be on that list for you? Something on that list that you're not going to do?
Oh man, that's such a good question. What am I not gonna do?
Now, see, next time somebody tells you about a bucket list, you're going to think about this. So, what's something you're
Mhm.
not going to do? And we get all kinds of answers.
Mm,
It
I
could,
don't I don't think I'm gonna go to a market in Thailand and eat the bugs that they offer ever on the
okay,
table.
that's good.
And there's I'm not going to compromise how I serve my clients. And so I will not dilute what someone needs on their journey. I will onboard as many team members and put them through the rigmarole to make sure that they're the quality that I need. If it gets to that point where we need to serve more people, then we will, but I will not dilute the delivery in the service.
Well, that's
'Cause
good. That's good. So, I will assume that you're not having any bugs for dinner any night time
no
soon.
bugs.
No
Although my
bugs?
husband wants to, have you heard of the crickets, like the cricket farms that people
Sure,
do?
sure.
He was interested, and I was just like, I know, I'm not eating them.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
Everybody has that list. And so just, think about because there's a lot of things. I'm not jumping on an airplane. Sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm not going back to Mexico City. I'm not eating any more sardines. I mean, there's just a lot of things like that. Just no, not going to do. So
I
anyway.
don't think I'm gonna shave my head either. Now that you've greased my wheels, so I think I
So
got, yeah,
you might have to make that list for us. Well,
yeah.
thank you for being generous with your time and sharing your story. Life is just about the steps of pivot, and everybody that generally has had great success, which are on those paths of doing those things, has either had an enormous amount of struggle. People have taken the refiner's wheel and turned it into steel. And then we have a lot of people who just done a lot of interesting, pivots that combine to who they are. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, folks, that is going to do it for another wrap of the Rex Andrews Show. Don't forget to stop by the website. Angela's profile is there, links to her business and what have you, and then the profiles to everybody previous and upcoming guests on the show. Just remember, there are too many interests for just one lifetime, so there's always another story around the corner. So until next time, I just have three things to say, which I say all the time. Be safe, be bold, and make it a great day.